Discuss Art. Thank you for tuning in to my conversations at the intersection of arts, culture, and community. I am your host, Rob Lee. Today, I am thrilled to have a returning guest and two new guests joining the conversation today. The first, the returning guest, is a community artist and the managing director of the Baltimore Improv Group Theater. They're in the heart of the Station North Arts and Entertainment District. Please welcome Michelle Faulkner Forson. Joining Michelle is an improviser, teacher, nonprofit leader, one of the founders of Highwire. Please welcome Barry Wright III. And lastly, but not leastly, and that is not a word, leastly is not a word, I want to welcome an improviser, filmmaker, and teacher based in Los Angeles. We got BOC, we got Brian James O'Connell. Welcome you all to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
Thank you for making the time. And we're here. I'm damp. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I like to say I'm glistening a little bit. I'm damp.
Mm-hmm. You always glisten.
Today you also are damp.
Yes, glistening and damp.
Just diversifying what I do.
Hi, we're glistening and damp. Can we have a suggestion, please?
And we're off to the races.
So I want to start off because we're talking a bit about improv. We're talking a bit about storytelling, talent, being on stage, all of that good stuff. So if we can go around the room and start off with reflecting on your backgrounds, can you share some of those like early creative experiences that have influenced your journey into improv and into like sort of the broader artistic community? Because I find it's never just one. I solely do improv and then I do nothing else. So if we could start with you, Barry.
Sure. I came to creativity really pretty late in life, in my late 20s. I tried to audition for the middle school play in 7th grade and didn't know what a stage direction was, so I spent 30 seconds just sticking my tongue out of my mouth when the line was supposed to be slip of the tongue. And so that knocked me out for a good 12 years. But the creative thing that really kept me going, and I think what led to improv, everyone's doing a really good job of not breaking, by the way, was I was in the marching band in high school, and that really taught me a lot about co-creation and working together as a big team. And for me, so much of improv is getting to work with other people. It's not an individual art form, generally, and that's, I think, what made it so exciting for me to return to when I found it later in life.
It's great.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, me. Oh, okay. I think for me, as I reflect back on it, early on I went to a Catholic school, Immaculate Heart of Mary, and my kindergarten class, I nearly failed kindergarten because of how rambunctious in doing. But thankfully, Mrs. Nance, R.I.P., I guess. Mrs. Nance was a music teacher first and foremost in her heart, and so at the end of the year play, which was one of those dumb kids plays where you mash up. It's like I played the cat in the the cow jumped over the moon, that nursery rhyme, but I also played like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. But I saved the play because I knew everyone else's lines, and when kids froze, I moved on that. And Mrs. Nance was just so overjoyed, and my mom was like, "Oh, that's who my son is." Okay, well, acting saved his ass. Okay, good. I came to improv late in life as well. I didn't find long-form improv until I was 27. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, High Point, furniture capital of the world, but also Little Chicago, because we're the 259th largest city in America, but we're currently number 34 in murders per capita.
Nice.
Actual Chicago is 28th. Don't worry, Baltimore, you're still in the top 5. You always will be.
Thank you for acknowledging us.
Yeah, but I played team sports. I played soccer. I was in bands. I was a working musician. I did speech and debate in high school. And so when I found long-form improv, it seemed like all the stuff I like, which was comedy. I'd done a little bit of stand-up in high school in teen years. And I didn't find it until I was 2003. And, of course, I grew up in High Point, North Carolina, but my entire family is from Chicago. So after I started taking classes, I didn't think that – I would see Whose Line Is Anyway. I was like, but that's British. That's a thing that's not available to us here. and then of course, discovering long form improv at Iowa West, RIP, and then a modicum of research, and then I was furious with my family because I was like, all those family reunions, all those summer vacations when we were up in Chicago, not one of my older cousins was like, hey, Brian likes comedy, we should take him to a Second City show. Like, I could have been going to like the summer intensive. My mom would have loved to get me out of the house for 6 weeks. My Aunt Kathy, R.I.P. I know some alive people. Don't worry.
We're here.
Yeah. She was my godmother, so she would have loved to have had me in the house for 6 weeks, and I could have been doing it like 10 years sooner. That's why I'm always like, I love Heather Ann Campbell. She's my sister, but she started taking classes when she was 15.
Wow.
Right? Like, Heather does everything I do, but just better. And so thinking then, of course, that she's always going to be 10 years better than me. I mean, don't get me wrong. Being the executive producer of Rick and Morty probably is fun for her too.
Yeah.
But it's really having the one up on me in improv is really what she probably that rocks her to sleep at night. And that's it. That's how I got to improv. And then I was like, I want to do that. That does all the things I do. And then I drank the Kool-Aid and just never left.
What flavor was the Kool-Aid?
Oh, Purple Source Rex at all times.
Just making sure.
Thanks.
Just making sure.
Ooh, Purple Source Rex.
Michelle?
Let's see. I noticed there's a trend here. I also did band in high school.
Nice.
I played the trumpet, but I wasn't in the marching band trumpet stuff. I did I was on the flag team.
Very
I was
nice.
Keeping the vibes
Drill team,
going.
rifle,
You know what I
flag.
mean?
Oh, yeah.
You know, we didn't do rifles in Chicago, for obvious reasons. Yeah, so
28, right?
Yeah, you know.
You got to bump up your numbers, Chi-Town.
But I also found improv or long form improv later on in my life. I was in my 30s. Yay. But just in my life, I've been that weirdo artist person. I started drawing, and that was what I did for fun. And making weird audio stuff with my friends. We would sing. I don't know, I remember very clearly recording with my friend, singing Showtime at the Apollo.
Oh, yeah.
At a high pitch voice, for whatever reason. I don't know why, but we did.
Please tell me you still have those recordings and you can send them to
I
us.
don't know where they are.
That's a yes.
Yep.
I don't know
she
where
has
they are. But it's all stored here. It's all stored here. But I love the idea of doing anything collaboratively, just because of who I am. I'm from a big sports family. My father played basketball professionally overseas.
Oh, cool. What teams do you know?
Well, number one, he was this superstar at the University of New Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Nice.
a
Go
Lobo,
Lobos.
right. So I need to connect with them, number one. Hey, I'm his child. Hook me up with a ticket or something. I don't know. Give me a plaque. I don't know. But from there, he played in Portugal.
Oh, yeah.
He played in France. I know he won in Portugal. So,
probably
go.
Porto?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't find that out till his funeral. So I was like, oh, yeah, we could have talked about this, let's talk about these things. But love collaborative anything. And that's why I kind of gravitated towards improv, because you got to make it happen together. And I love that.
I just went through a whole thing with one of my students of how basketball is improv.
It is.
A lot of overlap.
It is.
Hardwood floors, basically naked, audience right on top of you, hecklers.
Everybody play their position.
Yeah, they're all players, but everyone has specific roles. There's a point guard, center, small forward, pirate, robot, ninja.
Yep.
We have the Herald, the Decon, the JTS Brown. They have the Triangle office, the Princeton office, 7 seconds or less. There's a coach, but once the game starts, not much they can do.
Not really.
Talent can only get you so far, but chemistry has to do it.
Yeah.
Everything.
I could go on and on
And
and on.
40,000 people in the stands.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Very.
Sure.
Yeah. and billions of dollars. We got that. We all have that
Yes.
television deal, right?
Exactly.
So,
right?
So hold on. I want to move into this next part of the question.
Perfect.
Because Michelle, you know this, and you guys are knowing this now. I've been recording here at this space for a while. You guys always try to twist my arm. Do improv. I was like, I ain't got it, fam. And it's this sort of notion of, and I think it's rooted in maybe a misconception, right, of what improv is, and sort of, I think it's, from being here, I think it's pretty broad. I think I've encountered people who do improvisation. We're kind of touching on that a bit. So we want to do it in a snake way. So we're going to start here and go back around. That's what we're going to do.
Ouroboros.
In the realm of improv, like, what are some of the like common misconceptions, and like how do you address them? Like, if you're, you should come out for a class, you should check out a show, things of that nature. What comes to mind for you, Michelle?
One of the common misconceptions is that when I say, oh, you should take a class, oh, I could never do that. This is something everybody can do. Everybody, little kids to, our older friends, everybody can do this. Yeah. And that's like the biggest one that comes to mind.
Okay.
Oh, man. This is going to be a two-parter podcast. I will say, to piggyback off what Michelle is saying, I believe that as well. I have a philosophy and also like sort of, workshops that I teach called All Improv. I give basically a book for free to anyone that takes any class anywhere. It's also called All Improv because I believe improv is for everybody, and improv is in everything we do. Every time you get into a Lyft or get a coffee or go to the teller at the bank, you're in an improv scene, and position changes, and the person behind you is being, the person in front of you is being a weirdo, and you look at the person behind you who's a stranger, you're like, you believe this guy? And you're like, it's that instant connection. So I would say the two biggest, misconceptions I feel is like, number one, our job is to replicate recognizable human behavior. And that's when people are like, oh, I could never do that, I'm not funny. It's like, that's not our job. Our job is to do stuff that looks like, our job is to replicate recognizable human behavior and present it in such a way that the audience recognizes their own humanity. They reveal that revelation through the form of laughter, and then we can all have a longer discussion and deeper transaction of ideas on how to heal the world. Like, that's the thing that we're doing.
Mic drop.
Yes, thank you. I would say my biggest misconception, too, is also with our community. As John Crowley put it once, so wonderfully put it, the biggest problem with Herald players is that they've seen too many Heralds. Is that they think that's the only way to do it. He was like, I don't know, buddy. I don't think when someone says there's only 5 ways to do an organic opening, I don't know if they know what organic or improv means. And so for me, I try and challenge us in this community to be like, can you describe your show to a layperson, a non-improviser, without using the word improv? Because we are a young art form. People have a preconceived notion of what it is that we do. No one sees a live band that's maybe like a little younger, a little inexperienced on their instruments. They haven't quite written a lot of the originals and go, ooh, live music is terrible. I am never going to see a band again for the rest of my life. But when we talk to people, we go, you should come see my improv show, or you should take an improv class. They're like, improv's not for me. I've seen it once. It's like, no, you probably saw like an inexperienced grad show from someone that you work with. You didn't see TJ and Dave. You didn't see Weeby Negroes in the 90s. Like, so I usually tell people, like, the deconstruction is, I call the deconstruction a one-act unscripted play about the dark joy of the human condition. That sounds like something fun. That sounds like something you would want to go see. Oh, that's interesting. What is that? But if you're just like, oh, come to my improv show, you've lost them. You've lost them. So those are my two biggest misconceptions. Yeah.
I want to, just for a point of clarity for the folks listening, Herald, I don't know what that means.
Herald is the basic or sort of like standard form that we do in long form improv. The Herald is kind of like the 3-minute pop song. You expect to hear it and see it everywhere. The reason why it's called the Herald, as in the name, not in Hark the Herald Angels Sing, is because early on when they were developing it in Chicago, the myth is that Dell was like, not to be the guy that never met Dell and quotes him, does the voice like, so what should we call this thing that we're working on? And some jackass in the back was like, we should call it Herald. And in the spirit of yes and,
it stuck.
Yeah, it stuck. And then for the rest of his life, he was like, my life's work is
the Herald.
Some goddamn joke name.
Yeah,
but also, like, to be fair, like, Dell did a lot of great stuff for modern improv, and we're all so in some ways grateful to him, but also he was a racist and a sexist and a junkie witch. So, like, temper it.
He was a witch.
He had a lot of issues. The first time Sharna ever met him, he was literally summoning demons in a theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at the.
Talking about
I wish this was a video. Look, Rob's face is like, say what?
Tell me more.
You got me with these devil worshippers? Barry, what do you think are some of the misconceptions?
If I had my laptop here, I would just be in Wikipedia the entire time. Like, what are we doing?
There's a good documentary about him on. I think
it's
Hulu
pretty
or
balanced.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the biggest misconception is that improv is capital I improv, capital C comedy. When I tell people what improv is, especially somebody who hasn't heard about it much before, I tell them it's a team activity where exceptional communication and free creativity are working toward a shared goal. And maybe 1% of the time that shared goal is to present comedy for an audience. Much more often, as we've all been saying, we're improvising through every life interaction. And when people are presented with improv as something that can help them with their day-to-day life, they're much, much more likely to give it a shot.
Very true.
If they happen to enjoy the part where people laugh, that's great. They can do more of that. But there's so many more applications of improv that get people in the door. We were just talking to somebody out in the lobby before the podcast, and they were saying they're a documentary filmmaker, and they want to be prepared to speak to the press when the film goes out, and that's why they're taking classes. And
Or interview the subjects better.
100%. And you talk to 100 people who take an intro improv class, you'll hear at least 99 different reasons for why they're in the room.
Oh, that's so great. I'm gonna steal that. The idea. Why should I take an improv class? I don't know. You want to be better at doing life?
100%.
Yeah.
You want to? You like life? You want to be better at it?
Yeah. I tell people
That's great.
Improv is the most accessible art form. Because we've been doing it since we were born. If we've had any conversations with any people, or even nonverbal communication, we improvise when we decide if we're going to cross the crosswalk when the person driving doesn't have their blinker on. We're taking in information, we're making educated guesses about human behavior, and then we're taking action, and then we see what happens. And so
hopefully we don't get hit.
Yeah,
that's right.
I talk about that in my classes once. I use that as a metaphor where I'm just like, the idea of like not centering yourself in the experience is like, look, if you get like trapped, if you're turning left at a light and then you get trapped and you're in the middle of the road and so and the people are honking at you, you're like, I don't know, where do you want me to go? It's okay. But if you're 3 cars back and someone else is stuck, you're like, come on, you idiot! Jeez! It's perception, man. Presume no malice, as Josh Nichols from Rise Comedy in Denver always puts it best. He's like, presume no malice. That hey, that person up there isn't just being an a-hole. They're struggling with the same stuff you're struggling with, and then improv is very helpful, isn't it? If nothing else, like if someone's like, oh, I went to the doctor and my doctor says my blood pressure is way too high, I was like, you got to get thee to an improv class.
Yeah.
Oh, we should put some flyers in doctor's office.
Oh, we should,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, we're just workshopping it here.
That's what we do all the time.
I was just in Phoenix for the Savi Fest for the first annual one. Those gals run a great festival, and I met a doctor who, literally medical professional, who's also an improviser, and she was like, yeah, we're using so much of improv now to train our doctors how to talk to patients, how to hear them and listen to them. I know every single woman listening to this one is like, it'd be great if my doctor just didn't tell me to lose weight every time I came in with a problem.
Absolutely.
10,000 times. It's like, no, can you just run this test?
So getting sort of that component around like the life skills piece, I see that, and I have this question and even this belief that I always have out there that all creative folks are just problem solvers. And this is just another application or one of the other applications of that. So within the realm of improv, right, what are the aspects of of being in the scene, whether it be within a team, whether it be in performing, whether it be any of the parts of the scene experience, what of it brings you joy, and what are some of those like obstacles that are there? When I do this, right, the joy for me is being able to talk to people much more talented than me. I just like, oh yeah, I want to sound like I know something, and then creative editing later, I sound like a genius. That's the payoff. That's the payoff for me. So what are the things that give you joy, and the things that are just kind of obstacles or challenges that it's like you have to use those skills to get around and circumvent? Start with you. Right?
Sure. The thing that brings me the most joy is teaching people who are having their very first improv experience. I tell people, you go in the span of 2 hours from, I don't know what this is, to this is magic and I can't understand how anybody can do it, to this is magic and I can do it. And I used to teach math, and that's a much bigger uphill climb to get people excited about. The improv workshops, it's literally 2 hours from I'm terrified to I am so lit up by this entertainment and by this art form. You can't get a bigger smile on people's faces. It's a gift every time I get to do one of those. Very different point of view on the challenge is, it's so fascinating for improv, which is inherently a collaborative art form, especially living in America. The amount of the American individualism that kind of poisons the business and structure around improv is very difficult to get through. Like it's the entertainment industry, we were talking about the grant writing industry before the podcast.
I hate them all.
There are so many
No, I love you.
obstacles. Yes, exactly. Put that on the
me.
grant application. There's so many obstacles that are inherent into trying to build a creative community in a capitalistic, individualistic world in this country that people come with a lot of baggage, and trying to get to that place of community art form has 1,000 problems to solve every day. And those are the really interesting and challenging problems that I like to look at, because the impact on those is huge if we can get that to work.
Yeah. One of the things that I really, really get caught on, just generally, the things we like, right? We were talking about wrestling a little bit before we got started. The moment when I have a business degree. I don't have a creative degree. And I kind of pursued this on my own. Been doing podcasting for 15 years, right? And one of the things that happens as soon as some business fingerprints get on something, it starts to feel really weird, and it's not the thing anymore. It feels like it's sponsored by some dude in a suit, and I don't like it, despite having that background.
Yeah.
It's creatively and from the entrepreneurial mindset, I am Blade. I can walk in both lanes.
Absolutely.
All of their strengths, none of their weaknesses.
Who's the daywalker?
Literally. And
He walks amongst the creatives and the business people.
Literally. So Brian, what are your thoughts?
I just love the idea of you in the leather and the glasses, like walking on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Just
Blade-trepreneur.
I will say this thing. If we're talking about Blade, I highly recommend you find it on YouTube. One time there was a network special, I think it was on Fox, about, because, Wesley Snipes is obviously huge into martial arts and all that kind of stuff. And so they had like masters of the martial arts, and it was in a big theater in front of everyone, like sort of showing off the cool thing everyone could do. But he hosted it as Blade.
Amazing.
And so he was never on stage. It would always like, you'd see a bunch of like wushu guys do like a bunch of crazy stuff, and then the camera would pull all the way back, and Wesley Snipes into an over the shoulder of Wesley Snipes in the rafters, and turning around with his glasses on and be like, now that's pretty impressive. We'll be right back. And then like throws it to like a root beer commercial. Like it was incredible. Highly recommend.
What commitment.
I love it.
Yeah, sort of building on what Barry said as well. Like for me, nothing beats watching the light bulb go over a student's head for the first time, whether it's, oh, I'm capable of this, or we're working on a particular skill or an exercise, and they go, oh, because da-da-da-da-da-da. You're like, there you go, kid. Like, yeah, that's I feel like, for all of us as educators, that's sort of the dragon that we're chasing, like inject that in my veins. I'd say for me, the joy of at least performing, we talk about scene work and all that, very early, my mentor is a guy by the name of Miles Stroth, and my first my first real improv team was the Happy Time Rainbow Bunny Squad. There was 11 of us. We did the deconstruction. We were all like super gung-ho, passionate. We were very lucky to all find each other at the same time and want to like do this thing. But one of the things that he said that always stuck with me, and that's kind of how I play. I like the darker stuff. I don't do it as much as I used to do, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, because like the world is a trash fire. So I'm a little bit more puppies and rainbows now when I'm on stage. But the one thing he said to me, one of the many things that he said to me early on that made me stay with it is, our job is to hold up a mirror to the audience, and if they don't like what they see, that's on them. Our job is to attack middle-class white complacency. And I was like, sign me up. That sounds rad. And so, yeah, it's over the years, it's learning how to like slip in the medicine with the, with the sugar. So I'm not challenging people because no one wants to see a young white guy on stage being like, racism is wrong. It's like, what have you suffered? Your privilege doesn't allow you to say that. But sort of playing those characters and people are like, oh, I hate that guy, right? Like one of my favorite things in the world to do is to play a person I genuinely hate who is problematic and awful and evil, and then someone I know in real life, and then afterwards like, oh my God, I hated your babysitter character. Yeah, his name is Trevor. He sucks, right? There's watching the light bulb go off and then watching 200 people go, boo that person. I'm like, I know, and I know them, and they're awful. Thank you, I'm not crazy. So those are the ones for me.
That's great.
Definitely, I would agree with Barry and Brian about the watching people understand that they can be a part of this thing that we do. It's a beautiful thing. But
Turn into Martha Stewart there for the.
I know.
It's
well,
a good thing.
It's a wonderful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. I'd like to focus on my salad.
I have acorns. No. What I find joy, how I find joy out of this thing where we do is just being a good team player, man. Like I don't always initiate things, and if I do initiate, I have a set of things that I do because typically I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I'm gonna start something. But just being a part of a team is really important to me, and being a part of like something bigger than myself. So I don't always have to be the star. I don't always have to be the main person. We all have our moments of, shining, but just supporting each other is what I find joy out of.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking I came up with a new idea for a festival that I want to do, like just a little small 3-day one. I was called it Big Old Comedy Festival. So it's
Big Old
BOC. and have everything. Like day 1 is bits, it's improv. Day 2 is original material, scripted and stand up. And day 3 is characters and clowning and chaos. Oh my! And like so, it's BOC.
I love that.
All the food trucks would be like burritos, cheeseburgers, oysters. Like it's all. And then
is there an oyster truck? Like,
like oyster poi boys, or you can get.
Yeah.
I mean, we're it's Los Angeles. We're right by the ocean there. You can get them.
That's true.
And then have it all be branded that way, and then literally I do not perform for the entire 3 days. You see me at the very end of night 3, and I come out like Russell Simmons. Thank you very much for coming out. Good night.
Have a good night.
And then I'm out.
Yes.
He named it after himself. It's part of the bit.
I like it.
I'm on the same wave of that. It's like, this is Robcast, this is the Rob Festival. You don't see me at all.
Yeah.
Love it.
But it's branding everywhere.
Of course.
It's stickers of everywhere, but
Yeah.
I'm not really there. And for a second, I thought you were going to say just a food truck of onion rings. I was like, look.
Oh, onion rings will be there as well.
It'll slap. But also, and this is almost a very good segue because it's almost like I wrote questions professionally. So the next question that ties into that piece a bit, but for me, and it's in that vein of I'm always happy for something to exist.
Yeah.
I encounter it, I hear it all the times. We're in this, and I've been really riding this as an educator as well. You know that, did y'all? As an educator as well, I've been talking to like my students, the high school students, and I've been like really kicking out this idea of the sort of idea economy. And it's just like be protective of your ideas, but also be able to put them out there, just be measured in how you're putting them out there. Because, as I walk in, my blade side of the business world, I was like, they will take your ideas.
They'll take them real
And they
quick.
have the funding to actually make them happen.
Yeah.
But for me, a lot of times, I'm happy to see the idea come to fruition, and nothing blows my mind. Like, everything is a bit. Everything is a pun for me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a... And it's no one's done it yet, so but I still want to do it. It's a Halloween party called New Jack-O-Lantern Swing.
I love this so much.
I said it on the podcast yet again, so
I
no
love
one can
it
take
so
my
much.
thing. And it's just that. it's just like, come with your high top fade, come with your baggies, the whole thing. This is what we're doing.
I see hammer pants.
Yes.
I see. All I want is 3 guys dressed up like Guy.
Oh, yeah.
But also have the mask from V for Vendetta, because that's that guy's name.
You get it. You get it. And the thing
I want it. I want that, baby. And freedom.
and this is one of the things where my partner and I, we joke about it. We just look at each other and we see someone that has elements of that aesthetic. And we both like, what is it, the Black Lady sketch show? It's like, hump lords. And just look back at each other. Yeah, so right in time for Freaknik being out there in the scene.
Freaknik doesn't exist anymore, is that right?
The documentary dropped this week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like yesterday or something.
It's going to be great.
R.I.P. Freaknik. As a good Southern boy, you're like, Mecca. Oh, the beautiful women and the food and the music. I will hitchhike to you, Atlanta. Hotlanta, where the players play.
That's good.
Please do new Jack O'Lantern swing that I have.
Please.
I'm going to make it come to fruition.
Yeah.
Because it's
Whatever you
just
need.
there.
Yeah, for real.
Go to Twitter, find Teddy Riley's DM, and just be like, Guy,
Hey, got this idea.
toss me what you spend on lunch a month, and that billionaire.
I mean, my booking and outreach my outreach game is strong.
Yeah.
So it might work.
As Justin Ware from Dr. God put it best when we were putting together our movies and talking about casting and stuff, he goes, never get into the habit of saying no for other people.
That's right.
You don't know.
That's true.
Oh, she's too big of an actress. This is too small of a movie for her. You don't know. This movie is about sewing. Maybe she grew up, maybe she was raised by her grandmother, and some of her best memories are of sewing.
That's
or
true.
maybe you're shooting in Oklahoma City, and she was like, "Did you guys know? I'm from there.
Mm-hmm.
I went to high school there. I would love an excuse to go back and hang out with my family. They're giving me when are you guys shooting? We're shooting in May. They're giving me the key to the city in May.
Exactly.
Never
You
get into the
never
habit
know.
of, and that's how you get Rosario Dawson as your lead of your $5 million movie, because you never know what people are into. So absolutely, never get to the habit of saying no for other people.
Facts.
So now this question, and you and I have talked about this a bit, Michelle, this notion around sort of exploring and pushing boundaries, right? So why is it crucial to explore, push boundaries of improv, and like what innovative like directions do you foresee in this art form? Because again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, sort of the misconceptions of it's only this, it's only a very narrow idea. And then I think I sent you the musician who I interviewed, Kokai. And it's like, yeah, all of my beats and all of my rhymes are completely improvised. And he's a Grammy nominee.
Yeah.
He pays very little money for studio time.
Exactly.
One take, I'm out. Let's go.
That felt good. Yeah.
That was like 45 minutes. He did the whole album. Yes, please start, Michelle.
I just an artists in general, I feel like they are supposed to be pushing boundaries. I know in comedy right now it's, cancel culture. People are scared.
Doesn't exist.
I mean, people do it. People get canceled a lot.
Doesn't exist. Louis C.K. got a Grammy this year.
You know what? Everybody doesn't bounce back from that. I think it's who you are, who you're connected to, and things of that nature. But I agree, it's about who it is. But people are scared to push boundaries. But I think it's because, there are certain folks in power, and folks don't want to mess up their chances or whatever their goals are in life. They don't want to mess those things up. But luckily, my goal is to push boundaries.
Yes. Thank God we don't have the problem that stand-up comedy clubs do.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I'll book anybody. Yeah. I need it for the money. I always usually like to say, too, is like you don't have the right to a big audience or a general audience, but you get the audience you deserve. And so a lot of those people that we say are canceled and then go around, it's like, no, they're still there. They're just in spaces that we don't know. And if nothing else, they're making more money than they've ever made. We talked about clapter. You guys know that concept? Where it's like, if I go on stage and like, trans rights are human rights. And I was like, yay. Like, there's no joke there.
Right.
It's not laughter. It's clapter. Right. And it's sort of the opposite side of that is this sort of like, here's this bigoted, hateful thing. Yeah, woo, you can say anything. So those people are still making money. I mean, Shane Gillis.
Eat the facts.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't he just host
Yes.
SNL?
Yes, because it's I'll never watch that.
It's a short cycle now.
Yeah.
Never watch that show ever again. It lost me forever. But also, like when you have things like Black Lady Sketch Show and Key and Peele and Brats and Bread and all that, it's like you don't need SNL anymore, right? Like you can make an entire SNL cast of just the people that they passed on, like Amber Ruffin and Jordan Peele and all those guys. It's just like, all right, well then that's not my own. I have the Amber Ruffin show now.
Exactly.
Like, what do I need SNL?
Yeah.
Right? I'm already part of the NBC family with my own named show.
Yeah.
Shout out to Amber, lovely woman.
Yeah.
I think for me, what I hit up a lot right now, talking about evolving and pushing the work and creating change. I think the heyday of improv was 2006 to, if I'm going to be generous, 2012. And after that, the bubble burst, and it like the light coming from a distant star, it just took a while for us to get to us. And then a silver lining of the pandemic is that it got rid of all improv, and we all had to reassess to how it's coming. My girlfriend put it, who was also an improviser, put it best. She was like, improv will never go away. It will always come back. It's just going to be smaller and different. And I think right now, because everything comes in cycles, I think the improv bubble is going to start filling up again in about the next. So, 2006, 2026 is not that far away. And I think what our real issue right now, going off of something that Barry said earlier, my comedy partner, Jeff Hawkins, put it best. He goes, the worst thing ever happened to improv is someone put the word comedy behind it, because now there's an expectation
For it to be funny.
And so a lot of it now is we ask our students to push and evolve and challenge themselves, but we're not doing the same in the institutions of like how we teach it, meeting the students where they are. A lot of it's always that fine line between having institution where people enjoy having some terra firma under their feet and knowing that what's going on and that the theater is going to be there, and it's it's comforting knowing that on this day I go to this class and here's my grad show and these things. And also evolution. I don't think we challenge ourselves enough as the way we ask our students to challenge themselves, but like how we're teaching, where we're teaching, the different spaces we're moving out to. Does it need to be, me and Barry were talking about this the other day, like it's hard for anyone now to say, yes, I can be at this place on a Saturday from 2 to 5 for 8 weeks in a row. It's just people don't have the economic freedom. They don't have the time and space for it, especially younger people who don't know a different world of having 3 side hustles and also having their own things, having a podcast or having a Twitch. They may not live, breathe, and eat improv the way that I did, 5 to 6 nights a week for years on end. And then and sort of the proof of that as I look around, it's like, all right, the Deconstruction is over 20 years old. The JTS Brown is about as old as that. The Herald is even older. The improvised movie is about 20 years old. Where are the new forms? Where is the new presentation aspects? Why is improv still just people in street clothes on stage under a wash of lights? Where's the production value? Where's the sound mixing? Where's the costume designing, lighting design, multimedia? We're theater. Why are we not using all the other stuff that has been available to theater for forever? And why do we think we're not allowed it? I hate purity test in all things, but specifically in improv, where people are like, I don't want to do a gimmick show. I don't want to do what can I just do improv for improv's sake? And to me, some of that challenge then is like, because if you put it's easy to walk on stage and do a montage in your street clothes, and if it doesn't go well, that's fine. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, and you can always it's just improv. That happens. Nothing matters. But God forbid you be passionate about an idea, put a lot of money, time, and effort into it, and then if it doesn't fail, then you're maybe not wanting to look in that mirror.
Yeah.
And then, but that only starts from the top. We have to, as Coach David Thorpe puts it best, an NBA and college player, private coach, he puts it best. Our first job is to inspire. And so if we're not doing those kind of things and not asking for those kind of things, when the bubble starts filling up again, 2026, 27, all the way through 2030, and improv is big again, the same way that Dungeons and Dragons is big right now with, Dimension 20 and Critical Role and all those things, will we be prepared to take advantage of it? that's, this is the shit I think about late at night, guys.
No,
When I could be thinking about important things, this is what I think
This is
about.
important. This is important.
I see the parallels even in what I'm seeing in podcasting.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I try not to be one of those. It's almost like I think about the Hannibal Buress thing. I don't want to be one of those washed comedians like, man, back in the day, man. But I feel that as a podcaster and being around as long as I have, and then seeing like, hey, it's just two dudes talking. I was like, look, let's not start with that. That's not how we do this. Or there's an artistic side to it. And when I'm talking about, I approach what I do journalistically. I approach what I do as an anthropologist, and I feel really weird saying it, but you got to own it. And when it comes down to it, the same thing with the sort of theater thing. Like, it's the same, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, it's not an art form because you can easily get in there. It's not as rarefied as a fine arts field. And I'm
boy.
Yeah. But
Tell
are
me
you
about
sure?
that. Tell me about that.
And I have to like tamper my exuberance around it because I'm a large black man. But
Black men.
but I'm very mindful of that, especially, this has been my most stable creative relationship. I wanted to be a comic artist when I was younger. That's the lane I was going in. And like I said, I've done this for a decade and a half. So it's the reps, it's the time, it's the connections, it's the conversations. And when someone just trivializes it and says that, oh, it's just, you just talk with some people and then you turn the mic off. It's like,
Yeah, and that's
Excuse
why
me?
that's why most podcasts fail after 10 episodes, because people don't realize how much work goes into it, how much thought
Facts.
process. They also have picked a subject matter that they're like, oops, all berries. I now hate this subject. I don't
My
want
podcast coming out next fall. Oops, all berry.
Yes. I don't
That
want
would
to
be
talk
really
about
cute.
Yes, starring host Lars Blackman. Right? So I'm always in awe of someone that's done podcasts for a while, because people ask me a lot, like, BOC, why don't you do a podcast? And I'm like, well, it has to meet my two criteria. Number one, it has to be about something that I'm super passionate about and I can talk about and never get upset, because most podcasts fail before they even get to 50 episodes, much less 20. And number two, the entirety of my involvement has to be show up for 90 minutes and be fabulous. Like, I'll do a podcast if it's like with Earwolf or Stitcher and they have a whole team of doing it. I have an editing degree. I did a podcast called Radio Free Hollywood way back in the day, in the early 2000s. It was the official podcast of IO West. We recorded it live at Saturday night from the bar. We'd have people, big names, walking off stage, and that's how we got them.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, talk to us for a second, Chris Tallman. Talk to us for a second, Keegan. I did that for 2.5 years and did all the editing, all that, and like, never again.
Yeah.
Never again.
It's a lot of work.
So I have nothing but respect for Rob. Jesus Christ, man.
Yes.
Appreciate you. So Barry, I want to give you a chance to chime in on that. What question are we on? Pushing boundaries.
The boundaries. Well, yeah, and Brian said a lot of the things I was going to say. So thank you.
It's force I have it.
Yes. Yeah, we vibe. I mean, we all vibe, but it's improv. It's funny when people bring up the boundaries question. 99 times out of 100, it's like the boundary people think of is being hateful. And there's a lot more boundaries. There's a lot of more interesting stuff to do. And, we're talking about, the ebbs and flows of improv. And it's wild how much purity there is in improv, where, I'll have conversations online, which is always a mistake. But arguing with people about whether you're allowed to use a prop or a costume in an improv show. I'm like, are you serious? This art form where we can make up anything on stage, and you're going to argue with me about whether I can bring a hat on stage? Come on, like,
how many times have you heard me say no such thing as cheating in improv?
That's a great way to put it.
There's no such thing as cheating in improv. The only way we could be cheating is we wrote it out ahead of time. Well, then it would become scripted. It would cease to be improv. So hence, there's no such
cheating.
thing. If it works, it works. Please continue.
Yeah. Well, and so our organization started in September 2020 in the pandemic, and so this concept of like, what can improv be? We improvised that from the start. We did 1,000 shows online. Wow. 7 days a week with people doing everything from radio plays to a adaptation of The Great Gatsby with Gritty from Philadelphia.
I love it.
There's a lot of creativity.
I know who did that.
I know you know who did that. Yep. There's an infinite number of things we can do, and somehow 95% of improv is a herald, which is an esoteric term that most people didn't know and is sometimes hard to understand for the average audience. And we're gonna leave all that opportunity on the table. That's wild to me. So a lot of what I think about is just not doing that. We did a show 2 weeks ago. It was a March Mayhem. It was a adaptation of March Madness for improv. And it was a competition show where everybody won.
Oh,
Two things that don't happen enough in improv.
facts.
So,
Facts.
So this is at the, I guess I'll call it the 2-question warning. Got 2 questions left. Not 2 minutes. Sports. So the transition, and we'll start back with you, Barry.
Sure.
So the transition from being someone who's learning improv to being an improver to teaching improv. Talk about like what that journey has been like, and if you would share maybe an insight that was maybe challenging for you to get as a person learning it, and now as a teacher, it's like, oh no, you just do this.
yeah, the first thing I'll say is any skill and teaching that skill are pretty far apart. They are not the same thing. And to be a great improv teacher, you have to first learn how to be a great teacher. And there's an incredible amount of resources on how to do that well. I'm fortunate I spent 4 years in college teaching math classes. And the core thing that I take from that is 50 people in a classroom learn 50 different ways. And, if you go in and teach improv how you learned how to do improv, you are going to miss 80% of folks. And you really have to understand how people learn. You have to start using your improv skills and notice when people are zoning out or not getting things. In terms of something that like I found, when I was learning improv, there's a huge overlap of the kind of reacting acting skills and the creating writing skills that you have to bring together in improv. And most people are naturally inclined to one or the other, but rarely both. Yeah. And so for me, I'm a writer creator first. And, so even something as simple as like understanding how my face looked when I was emoting was really tough for me. And I had to go home and mirror and like, oh, that's what sad looks like. Because I'm never sad. I just didn't have the muscle memory. But then I'd see other people just nail that from the first day. And, the adaptation was to just, look at everybody in the room, figure out who's got what skills and adapt my teaching to that need.
Thank you.
Excellent. It's the second time you brought up the math thing, which I think is always funny. I hate math. Some people are like, oh, BOC, like it sounds like what you're teaching is math. I was like, I hate math. I would never this is comedy truth, not comedy math. I promise. I would never make you do math. I went to North Carolina School of the Arts, which is an arts conservatory for college. And one of the great reasons of going there was that I had to take a math or a science to graduate. Nice. So I took earthquakes and volcanoes.
Classic.
And it was great because the teacher, because all the professors who taught like the basic classes, they were like, look, we know you're here to be a ballet dancer. We know you're here to be a DP. You don't give a shit about this. And so that guy also, so he was great, but he also sounded like Elmer Fudd. So he was like, today we're going to be watching a video about Vesuvius. And I was like, hell yeah, man. 8 a.m. on a Monday, I am watching a 75-minute documentary about Pompeii. I'm watching, Mount St. And now we're watching Mount St. Helens. And I'm like, thank you, sir. So this is what I hear my other friends who are like, oh, man, this calculus is really kicking me. I'm like, never done it. Never taken it. Don't have to. But yeah.
I'll teach you one day.
Yeah, never. If Barry goes missing, that's all you know. My girlfriend's a prosecutor, so she'd be like, that's a statement of intent, boo. Don't say that. She works in the arson unit. It's great. So she was working in gangs when we met. It's great. Suggestion is, no. So the question is, for me, going that, I knew I was going to be doing this for the rest of my life, and I knew that I was passionate about it. Miles told me, you're ready to coach when someone asks you. They've seen enough of your work. They've seen you play on stage, and they're like, "Hey, we have some group. We all have a practice group. Do you coach?" And that's how you know when you're ready, because they've seen enough of your stuff, and they think you're good. That maybe you can help them be good, right? It's another thing Coach David Thorpe talks about with NBA players. He's like, they don't care if you ever played the game. They don't care at any level, or a professional level. They don't care if you played in Europe. They don't care if you're a woman. If they believe that you can help them become better in their sport, they'll take your advice. They'll listen to you. So the same thing with teaching is like, you're ready to teach when someone lets you. Right? When you throw your, whether it's at Big or like, I would love to, someone sends you an email and says, hey, I've been a veteran for a while. I would love to be considered for level 1 teaching. One of the things I love about Big and Highwire is that they do have that sort of system in place of creating new teachers and saying, hey, if you're passionate about it, you want to do it, go through this. money where your mouth is, but also we're putting our money where our mouth is and investing in you, which I think is great. At IO, we had a thing where we had to like be shadow teachers, but like sitting in a class, Bridget Kloss was great to me, Dave Hill was great to me, the other guy, who I won't name and embarrass, not so great to me. Because that's the other thing. Eric Honeycutt, if anyone gets a chance to study with Eric Honeycutt, I highly recommend it. He's a great improv teacher, but also like a great theater director. He's one of the few people that's, Steppenwolf, he's allowed to teach viewpoints, which there's not a lot of guys that are, people that are allowed to do that. He put it best to me where he goes, you know you're ready to teach when you can demonstrate the lesson without embarrassing the student. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's, which goes back to that, like you're going to miss 50 different people learn in 50 different ways. It's like, yeah, it's that. You're trying like, oh, let me just tweak that. Let me adjust it. Here you go. And that's sort of my bar. So when people say like, yeah, I'm trying to get into teaching, I'm like, you can't demonstrate the lesson without embarrassing a student.
Yeah.
Your ego won't allow that.
Talk about that ego.
Yeah, that's a big thing with teaching is that you have to, if you're going to teach, your ego has to be not even the top 10 of things to consider. It has to be about the student. Mm-hmm. And then it comes to directing, which I think coaching, teaching, and directing are 3 different things, and there's 3 different languages. Coaching is the love language. Teaching is like, I love this. I would love to see you more do this. I would love to see you challenge yourself, right? Because you're the employee of the group. Teaching is you're an employee of the institution where you go like, I need... Like, you know, mm-hmm. I need to see this. You can hate this exercise. We can just do it for the next, you know, Christopher DeJong in San Francisco, great teacher, puts it. He goes, you don't have to like this exercise. You don't have to ever do it again. But for the next 5 minutes, I need to see you try. Mm-hmm. It's hard for anyone to be like, you ain't got 5 minutes?
Yeah.
You can't spare 5 minutes for this? And then I promise you'll never have to do it again. And then directing is, I want. Yeah. We've agreed on this type of work. I want to see this. I want to do that. And the only person, you know, coaching is when someone asks you. Teaching is when someone allows you. Directing is when you allow yourself. You're the only person that you're like, I want to do this kind of improv show. No one else is doing it. I guess I'll have to do it. That means I'm the director now. Mm-hmm. Well, now you have to like do it and then be like, nope, that's not the kind of work. And if there's someone on the cast who is like, well, I think we should be doing this. That's great, but that's not what I want. Mm-hmm. I want this. Mm-hmm. And if that's not the type of work you're doing, I mean, obviously be open. It's a collaborative art form, but at the end of the day, it's like if you have a vision, you have a vision. And so to me, that's kind of how it breaks up. And then, you know, there's people who have been better. Like, again, going back to John Crowley, he was like, oh, buddy, I could never teach. He's like, I can coach them, but, you know, even then, he goes, when people ask him to coach, he's like, I've got maybe enough for like 5 rehearsals. And after that, I don't know. I just do it. So there's also this we have to keep in mind and let people know who are listening to this. You can do improv because you enjoy it and you love it. You can be a veteran. You can be respected. But there's not becoming a teacher is not the ultimate goal. That's not how evolution works. Cats are here because cats won evolution. They're not eventually going to turn into cat people that are bipeds and humanoids, right? Your evolution is what it is. And if you're still in improv 10 years later and you're not a teacher, that's not a negative. You're still here, buddy.
That's true.
You're just like with the giraffes and the duck-billed platypus and everything else. It won. You won. Right? That's how I got.
Wow.
Yeah, follow that.
Well said. So I've been a teaching artist probably 17 years. Yeah. So I've always had this kind of nurturing thing going with anybody that's just trying to figure out how to express themselves. So my intention was to never do that. It was always to make art. But a sister got to sustain her life, though, too. But just in general, I feel like I'm always trying to build my little tool belt. Just like whatever I have that I can give or share with folks, I'm just trying to, I got this for you. Oh, you want to do this? I got this for you. So it's not that I'm necessarily trying to teach, but I'm also just trying to give resources and information to people.
That's so funny. Recently, I've started talking a lot about, like, I see myself less as a teacher and more as a librarian.
That's it.
What are you looking for?
You are a librarian.
Yeah, I'm like,
You're totally a resource.
I'm like, let me me take you to this section. This is what you're looking at. Yeah. Here's the book that I like. There's like 9 books, though. So
exactly.
What are you doing? Ooh, that's a more old school comedy. Follow me to the basement. And we'll break out the
Watch your head. Watch your head.
Yeah. I also laugh, too. You're like, how did this happen? It's like, as the 3 of us run on improv theaters and we're like, why is this happening?
Why is this happening?
How did we end up here?
We had to be.
Yeah.
We had to be.
That's every place I go to. They're like, the phrase, and you've probably all of us have said it and or thought it or heard someone else say it. Well, initially we just wanted to have a place to play. And then the next thing you know, they're running a theater, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm doing even less playing than I thought I was going to be doing.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
So
It's awful.
So we're here at this final question, and generally I kind of
Says you. I got 9 more questions.
generally I save this part because this is in the vein of shameless plugs, and this is very sort of, and I'm gonna frame it like this: what is next on your creative agenda in the next, let's say, month, quarter, however you want to really frame it, but over the next like sort of 3 months, what's like right there, like popping up for you that like you're really excited about, really looking forward to? And we can start over here with you, Michelle.
Well, I am with a wonderful team called Cakewalk, and we just started doing a new show that it has props, there's costumes, there's all of the things.
It's so good.
And it's been really fun.
That's all of Baltimore cheering right now.
Thank you.
Not just Baltimore.
Yeah, most of my team is in Minnesota right now, and I'm here. But it's okay. I'm with good company. But I'm really excited to continue to explore the possibilities with that team, because it's not a bunch of ego. We all just want to win together, and I'm so grateful that I asked to be a part of that team, because I didn't have I was teamless once I started running the theater, and I needed something for myself, and that was where I landed. So I'm grateful for that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. Whenever you say that, it always reminds me that there was a House Herald team at Iowa West named Cakewalk as well. So it's just like pretty much everyone I know that was on a team called Cakewalk I like. Friends. Also like teamless. So it's just like I immediately went to Garth Brooks. I'm teamless.
Yeah, man.
I need to make a theater to prof.
Yes.
I guess for me, there's a bunch of different things. Like me and Barry and the rest of the High Wire gang have been working on the reason why we're talking right now, because I'm in town doing the Rust Belt tour, which is sort of when I travel, I've been to like 150 festivals all over the planet. I've had Mexico City, Krakow, Poland. I have online students from South Africa and South Korea and New Zealand, and a lot of times when I talk to people, almost always what I hear is, we would love to bring someone like you in, but we're a small community, we don't have the budget, we can't afford it. And in the true sense of yes and, I was like, well, let's try and figure out how to solve that. And so I come from a background of traveling musician, and I'm a big Henry Rollins fan. I have 3 tattoos, 2 of them are Rollins related, and he talks about in his diaries, his book Get in the Van, which are his diaries from being on the road with Black Flag, and he and Greg Ginn, who's the founder of Black Flag and SST Records, which had the Minutemen and the Descendants and all those guys, there were no punk rock clubs, right. So they just would get in the van and go play anywhere. Like Black Flag was from Los Angeles. Rollins is from D.C. Famously, right. Him and Ian MacKaye from Minor Threat and all that. They saw them at the 930 Club, right? And it's that kind of thing. They punk rock. They would pull people on stage to sing a song. He did a song with them, and then later when Des Cadena wanted to move to rhythm guitar and didn't want to sing anymore, they reached out to a guy 3,000 miles away that they had met in D.C. and say, "Hey, do you want to come out to L.A. and hang out?" He was like, "Okay, yeah, it's my favorite band, of course." And then he gets in there and he's like, "You want to sing anything?" He's like, "Sure." He's like, Am I auditioning for this band?" Right? The same way. So I was like, they would get it and go anywhere. And the idea is that they would play in a 16-year-old kid's basement of his parents' house. They're like, "Oh, my parents are cool, it's right." It's like, "Well, all right, when we play." And then 5 years later, that kid's a promoter. He's 21 years old. He's got a venue in town that lets him book stuff there. And next thing you know, they have just carved out this punk rock club circuit that people like Green Day and Blink-182 and those, and No News for a Name that followed after them can play. Yeah. And so as I started doing that, Barry was the first one to be like, "Hey, can that be a High Wire thing?" I'm like, "Oh, please, for the love of God, please help me." Please have anyone help me do it just like this. So it's that. So I like to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening globally in improv, and going to all these different festivals and being, nice enough to lucky enough to meet people and all that. I just went through and looked at, if I didn't know, I Googled it and found the Facebook pages and all that kind of stuff. The All Improv book that I give away to everyone has over 2,100 hyperlinks to improv, and
they all work.
They all work. Every Memorial Day, I go through and make sure they're all working, and then add a couple of sections. So I just emailed 41 theaters between Rochester, New York, and Green Bay, Wisconsin, and said, "Here's the idea. If everyone shares the cost, the biggest costs are travel and lodging, right? Mm-hmm. I know some places cannot afford a $500 to $700 plane ticket to bring me in for a long weekend, right? Or even they would have enough people to take the class to make it, I have a very small minimum, especially compared to other vets of my stature, for lack of a better term. But if we all share I need a plane ticket to get wherever I start and a plane ticket home from wherever I end, I'll stay in a spare room. I'll stay, if you want to get a hotel room on points, whatever, I don't need the Ritz-Carlton. If someone wants to give me their spare room in exchange for taking the class, great. If someone wants to drive me to the next town in exchange for taking the class, awesome. Or train rides, especially here on the East Coast, it's very easy to get a $31 train ticket from Philly to Baltimore and be like, yeah, I'll see you in 2 hours. Right? Mm-hmm. And then sharing and spreading that cost around then makes it much, much more palatable. And that's it. We got, and then even this, we split it up into 2 months just because some of the dates worked better in the Midwest for those people. And then literally yesterday, we sent out 50 emails for what I'm calling the Northwest Classage, right? Where it's Northern California, so starting in San Luis Obispo, theaters from San Luis Obispo all the way up to Alberta and Edmonton, Canada.
Nice.
50 different theaters, people that are sort of big veterans in that area. Same thing. We just need 7 theaters to say yes out of the 50. Yeah. And then we'll do that. And then we'll do one in the Southwest. And the idea is that myself and also Highwire, and I'm also on the board, I'm very proud to be on the board, then we have built this community, and then people after us. It's a way for the theaters we prove up the concept, and then I can reach out to people who are veteran names and oh no, you should do this. So they're getting even bigger and better names than myself into their small communities where normally they would not be able to do that, but also providing opportunities for people behind me, especially for marginalized people. I think Alrinthia Carter is one of the smartest people in the world and a great improviser and a lovely human. She plays drums. She's a great photographer, loves Prince and the Muppets. She wrote for Black Lady sketch shows. She got, she got cast on that. But being able to put someone like her on that tour, and then someone like Brian Philip Cruz, and then someone like Becky Sanders, and then someone like Jason Van Glass, where we're proving out the concept, and after that, that's the legacy then.
Yeah.
It's, if you do, I always go by heart, hustle, and house in that order. If you're passionate about something and you really work hard at trying to get people to see it, the house will show up. The money will come. Mm-hmm. I don't remember how to say it in Gaelic, so I'll just say it. I'll stop it there. But there's a phrase in Gaelic that just basically translates into money comes. Yeah. How are we going to pay the rent this month? It'll come from somewhere. We're working hard. We're trying. An opportunity that you do not know exists will come from it. I feel I'm making good money now, not life-changing money, but enough to pay my rent because, the strikes and all that. I was I got to get ahead of this.
Yeah.
There's going to be no work, and there's still no work. Yeah. Everyone's complaining about that. So I try to be proactive, but the money will come later. Someone will be like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I took your class in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in reading this script and directing this film? I have an $8 million budget. Great.
Sure.
Yeah, there it is.
Thank you.
So that's a sort of long. The great irony is I talk too much when I do these kind of things, and then you see me play, on an improv stage. I'm like, that guy doesn't fucking talk at all. Is that the same guy?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So please, Barry. I covered I covered the Rust Belt tour stuff, so now you can talk about stuff that you actually care about.
I care deeply about that. It's great. It's because it was interesting. You framed the question as what's in the next 3 months, and I find myself constantly thinking between the next 3 months and the next 30 years.
Amen.
And a lot of what I'm trying to do with Highwire Improv is at that decade level, right? Mm-hmm. This is not a success if we don't have a stable, thriving improv community in Baltimore when I'm done and gone.
Yeah.
And I'm a fine improviser, I'm more interested in taking those improv skills to the business of improv, to pushing back against that individualism I was talking about.
Yeah, where everyone sees themselves as the lion,
Right.
never see themselves as the gazelle.
Exactly.
They all think they're just billionaires in waiting. Come on, man.
And, everything, one of our core values is action, and we really take that to heart in terms of how we run the organization and just trying things to, take shots at what's going to put us on the map and keep us there for a long time. So we got the Rust Belt tour. We're going to do a boat comedy tour in the summer.
Fire.
Yeah. We're doing, improv for people who have just moved into technical management roles and have to lead a team for the first time. And so there's all of these different things we can do, these different shots we can take to try and set a foundation that's not just people showing up for a $10 show or a $200 class, and finding a sustainable business model for what I still believe should be the most ubiquitous art form in the country, because everybody can do it. And yet sometimes we still get put on the ticket sites as entertainment and not art, which frustrates me to no end. And we've seen, especially post-pandemic, institutions falling apart in these cities, not just in improv, but in theater and art, overall. And seeing a company like Improv Boston that was around for 40 years,
R.I.P.
shut down last December.
Oof. Steel City just 2 days ago.
It's happening all over the place. If we're not laying the groundwork to have buildings that we own, organizations that we control, and a sustainable business model behind this, then we're not doing a service to the community who needs this art to improve their lives. So that's what I think about.
Yeah, we had that at the Pack Theater in Los Angeles, the theater I'm a co-founder with, along with Miles and Heather Ann Campbell and Eric Moneypenny and Sam Brown from The Whitest Kids You Know. From the beginning, we were like, we are not in competition with the other improv theaters. We are a complement the other improv theaters, and I always try and push that. It very rarely happens nowadays, which is great, but I always get bummed out when I hear about improv theaters that have like no compete clauses, or if you perform here and then perform this other place, then you have to choose. And I'm like, well, if there's 3 improv theaters in town and 2 of them say I don't give a shit, and one of them says you can't perform anywhere else, guess what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I'm taking skin in the game, as Kevin Dorff says. It was like, I'm going to play at the 2 theaters, which is twice as much.
Exactly.
But I'm with Barry, that sort of vision that I have. I agree 1,000% with everything he's saying. I also would like to get it to the point where if they're, like something like Portland has like 9 improv theaters, because when it's like, oh, I want to do a different kind of improv, well, I'll just start my own theater. Like, yes, it should be so ubiquitous.
Yeah. 10 per city.
Yeah, 10 per city, where your town is just dinner and an improv show is just what you do.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does.
I'm seeing this. This new girl I met her on Hinge. I was like, how do you? Like, good chats and stuff. What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, we're gonna go on a first date. What are you going to do? Well, I'm gonna take her to this restaurant. Oh, nice restaurant. You must really like this girl. Yeah, and then we're gonna go to Big and see a show. Nice, good call.
Exactly.
Like, I want
a commercial.
Yeah,
Right.
I would love, we talk about 10 years from now, 30 years from now, I would love for our art form to get to the point where I never have to send a Facebook invite or Eventbrite ever again. I can just show up, and I know that is going to be a standing room only show, because it's just, people just, that's what you do. Why would you do anything else, right? And I think it's because of that openness. I think it's because of that, the diversity, the community, being around cool people that you can't go watch a movie and then talk to the people that were in the movie and say stuff and then have them thank you for seeing the movie. But we can do that, having been accessible, having being available, and having it seem like that's accessible to me. There's no money up there. I don't have to learn how to play guitar for 20 years like Eddie Van Halen before I can start my first band. It's like, no, it's here. So that is my goal, knock on wood, that 10 years from now, which is still ambitious, I would love for 85% of the improv theaters in the world to be like, we haven't seen an Eventbrite in 2 years. We announce a show, and then there's a waiting list in 24 hours.
Yeah. I think this is like a conversation about changing culture, because the culture is not that at this moment. And just by us having this conversation, we're changing things.
If you want to be a gunslinger, if you want to be like, I want to be the best and the fastest draw, and they're like, go into stand-up. That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I know lots of stand-ups who are really good human beings, but like, it is a me against the world. Go up there, get your laughs, you work on your set, get to your tight 5, get on Conan, get your hour, hopefully sell Netflix on that. There's opportunities creatively for that.
For sure.
We're a collaborative art form. Like, build your house at the edge of the village where we start having new houses. Then you want to, don't kill anybody and don't steal the grain, right?
We can do this together.
First 2 steps. Everything after that we can sort of hip you to as it comes along. But like, don't kill nobody. Don't steal grain. Don't steal food.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And so we're here towards the end.
Okay.
We're
For now.
Barry just slipped me a note that he has 8 more questions. So,
So there's 3 rapid fire questions that I have, and as I tell everyone, don't overthink these.
I'm overthinking.
oops, all Barry's too late.
Podcast coming soon. Executive produced by Rob Lee.
Yes.
So we'll start with you, Barry. Then
Yeah.
we'll work around. Who are your favorite people to bounce ideas off of?
My wife, Kristen, who's also a co-founder at Highwire, and then anybody who wants to listen.
Good.
All right. I guess we all have to say our spouses and significant others now.
I wasn't.
Or we'll be assholes.
I'm gonna be an asshole.
Yeah. No, I'm yeah.
That's great.
I bounce a lot of ideas off of my girlfriend Elizabeth, but also a lot of times it's just like, I'm not going to bother you, and also it's not in a place yet where it'll make any sense to anyone but me and my crazy brain. I bounce a lot of stuff off of specifically John Conroy and Jessica Young, who are on my improv team, Big L Taxi, but we've been friends for almost going on 20 years now. Jess and I came up through levels together. She was like 1 level ahead of me at IO. Our 2 teams did our first 2 teams, Night Terrors and the Bunny Squad, did tons of shows together. And we do a lot of gigs, just the trio of us as well. So we're constantly in cars and back and forth and doing all that stuff. Christopher George, I like to in Chicago because he does a lot of deconstruction stuff as well, and he's a very good teacher at it, and he's doing like new things. So we always end up talking shop in that way. Obviously, Miles Stroth, the old man, as we call him. I'll come over and pick brains, and we go back and forth on this stuff over and over and over again. But a lot of it is, this is going to sound insane, a lot of it is me. I do a lot of research. I have just an atrocious amount of Google Docs and improv. So like the All Improv book has 2,100 hyperlinks, and I'm trying to get it shorter. So I was like, oh, right, YouTube, you could just make a playlist. You don't have to have all these individual YouTube links in the page. And of course, I've created a new monster for myself. So just in like the 4 months of having that YouTube playlist idea, it's over 1,300 videos. It's so... It's improv examples, shows, TED Talks. Oh my God, there's so many TED Talks about improv, especially TEDx. So I'm constantly thinking about this stuff at all times. And so when you ask like, who do you bounce your ideas off of? Dude, it's me. It's usually in my... If I'm really nerding out, I have turned my closet into a voiceover booth and all that kind of stuff. Do self-tapes in there. Like I'll go in there and just... what's the new? I listen to a lot of Witch Trap, Witch Wave. If you guys know that music,
Never heard.
Oh, strap in! It's fantastic. Remind me later. I'll send you all the
I
links.
worked at
I'll send you
Spotify and I haven't
1,300
heard that one.
Yeah, Witch Trap, Witch Wave, Dark Wave.
Got that one.
Love Dark Wave.
Yeah.
And then just yesterday going to the show, that's when I came up with the idea of the BOC Fest. I was like, oh, this might be funny, but also, there's like 5 ideas that I shouldn't even bring up right now. A whisper of it, especially with the pack, because people are like, "What is that happening?" I'm like, "No, I stepped down from my duties in 2019. Your team's fine. No one's going anywhere.
Right.
I have no power. So it's just me. I'm sure that's healthy mentally.
I would agree with you.
Same.
Like I bounce. So I don't even really bounce ideas. It's kind of like I know the ideas come to me for a reason, so there's no reason to bounce them.
Dangerous.
To a degree.
Yeah.
And then once I'm trying to execute something, then I reach out to folks.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
And most of those people are like, just folks that's been in my life that could like understand me already, and I don't have to like do a bunch of explaining about how my brain works. And those are folks my Micah family, community arts family, because they know how my brain works already. Folks around here, my Cakewalk team members, Thomas, they're all just, creatives, and they understand that how to execute things versus like me having to explain why this is even in my brain, So I try to just make sure I'm talking to creative folks so it won't be as hard of a lift to get to the resolution.
If I may, just for a brief moment, Rob, if I can just add to the long history of straight white men telling black women what to do.
Yes, tell me.
With unsolicited advice.
It's great.
The only thing I would say is, and this is from personal experience, whatever the dog tells you to do, don't do it.
I don't have dogs telling me stuff.
Good. Don't get, because they're gonna tell you to get a large handgun and just roam the streets at night.
No,
don't do that.
I won't.
So
worry.
I mean, when you say you're like, I talk to myself, I get my own advice. I mean,
no.
but
my cats don't talk to me.
Yeah,
excellent. Just throwing that out there.
No, thank you for that.
Okay, cool,
and I will be alert.
Yeah.
Of the dog speaking.
You are the chosen one, Michelle.
Like I know, right? No one understands.
He has ulterior motives.
So here are the last two, and these ones are intentionally short because one of them is literally just tell me a word. All right, and we'll start with you, Michelle. What is a word that you absolutely hate hearing? Some people hate the word moist for some reason.
Oh,
they
yes.
do hate that word. I like saying it though. Anyway,
They strolled in here saturated. I was like, I guess I'm going to say
one of my pro wrestler friends went. His whole gimmick was moist for a long time.
It's great.
Johnny Moisterson. It was great. It was great.
It's good.
I'm not. You know what? I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's one of those. I hear a lot of safe space, that conversation, and it no one really has control over making everyone feel safe, and just any of those phrases that everyone's using because everybody's using it, I despise those.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the first one that came to me was purity. I hate purity tests in all things, especially in improv. I hate people that make good the enemy of perfect, the enemy of you're good, the enemy of perfect, or however you want to say it. Anyone that just the stridency. I mean, it's one thing of people complain I'm just trying to think of an example off the same. We should all be eating organic, and I'm like, if you snapped your fingers and everyone ate organic tomorrow, 2 billion people on this planet would die. That's not how these things work. Also, I only eat this. I'm like, you do understand that the corn that we eat is not demonstrably anything like the corn that naturally grew out of the ground. What reason some people hate the banana flavored gum or banana candy? It's because the varietal of banana that flavor is based on does not exist, and it hasn't for 100 years. So it doesn't taste like banana to people that are especially super tasters. Being collaborative and being part of a community, it requires compromise, and it's specifically something we talk about the punk rock thing. There's a great spoken word album by Jello Biafra, who was the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys, founder of Dead Kennedys. It's called Beyond the Valley of the Gift Police, and he tells a great story. And this is from 1993. I mean, 92 is probably when he ended the stories. It's a double CD. It came out in 93, 4 CDs. And at one point, he tells a story about all these different things, talking about the politics of the day, and he goes, I'm so tired of purity tests. I'm so tired of these people who are like, well, I'm not going to put you in my zine because you're not a vegan.
Oh no.
I'm not gonna let you volunteer at my nonprofit because I don't think you're punk. And then he said this phrase, and it stayed with me ever since the first time I heard it. He goes, it's much more important. He goes, because of course it's much more important to argue about whether Screeching Weasel or Neurosis is more punk than it is important to fight the fucking fascists in this company are taking over. And here we are.
Oops.
30 years later, and it's like we did not listen to any of that, right? So that for me is purity. I hate anytime I hear purity. I'm just like, I don't think you understand how like community works.
Yeah.
Right. At any stages, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. Because the next thing you know, like, don't perform at my theater, and the next thing you know, it's like now you're just. Now you've just changed the uniform, but it's just fascism still. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't hear purity a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, it happens silently. In the same vein, I get frustrated.
At the white man meetings, we do it all the
I'm
time.
not invited to those.
We're required to go. We don't agree with any of it.
It's good.
There's a song. Anyway, go ahead.
Sure.
It's all polka. You know it is.
Polka's great.
It is.
When people say I or me when they should be saying we or us.
Hell yeah.
That really bothers me.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right, this is the last one, and you know that me, I like to get into the minutiae, I like to get into the details. We've become friends in here. So I'm curious about the traits of creative folks, and you know, traveling is a piece. We've all traveled to different places, so I need the sitting. I don't need the context. I just need the sitting, and I need the food. What is your best food city experience? Yeah, we'll start with you, Barry. We'll start with you.
The first bowl of ramen I had on my honeymoon in Tokyo.
Boom.
That's great.
Yes, we had a great bowl there.
Sorry, Kristen.
The great piece of advice we got, and it was 100% true. We were like, where can we get the best bowl of ramen when we're in Tokyo? And my friend said, go to a place where there's a line out the door and it's only locals, and that's the place you go. There you go. Best city, best food. Does it have to be improv related, or it's just
Yeah.
Cool. Were you doing improv in Tokyo?
The first time I ever did improv was on my honeymoon in Tokyo.
Hell yeah.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
Jealous AF.
It's good.
I think for me, it would have to be. So me and my partner Jeff Hawkins, we went to the Philadelphia Improv Festival probably every year for like 10 years in a row. And so I grew up in High Point, North Carolina, so I have kind of the best both of worlds. You know, I get all that great Southern cooking, country ham, red eye gravy, and all that kind of stuff, black eyed peas. But also my parents are from Chicago, so they would, growing up in the house, they would make things like pierogies and stuff like that. Anytime I show up in Philadelphia, and I see pierogies on the menu, I'm like, it's happening. I've eaten all the local foods. I like it. I forget what it's called. It's Cincinnati's version of Scrapple. I just had that. It's not bad. It's pretty good. But it's just like when I'm in Philly, I'm like, all right, there's the pierogi. I'll have the pierogies first of all. They're like, would you like? I'm like, yeah. I was like, yes, I would like you to boil them, and then I would like you to flash fry them in the oil, and then the side of the onions and the sour cream and the apples. Yes, we're not strangers, you and me. Give me your pierogies.
It's crazy.
I was in San Antonio, and there was this Asian fusion Southern barbecue place.
Yes.
Say more.
It was so good. I forget the name of what I ordered, but it was like a curry dish, and it was named after one of their basketball players. I forget the name.
Tim Duncan.
It wasn't Tim.
Manu Ginobili.
It was the
Tony Parker.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Wow,
thank
I
you.
did not expect that.
Yeah. It was
So let me get this right. There's a Texas barbecue Asian curry named after a Frenchman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Copy.
It was delicious.
10 on 10.
It has to.
It was
you can't
so-
have all those. You can't have
it
all
was
those
so
elements
good.
together if it's not fire.
And there was a lot of people there.
I bet.
I bet, yeah.
Was it right? Was it right on Riverwalk? Was it right on that river?
I can't tell you where I was.
Okay.
I don't know where I was.
I'm not even asking for the name of the restaurant. I just wanted the
I'm gonna
area.
Google
San
it.
Antonio.
It was
Okay.
in my it's in my stories.
That's an easy Google with those constraints.
Right.
That's
So good.
That is fantastic, and thank you for indulging. This is the first time I actually tested that question out, so you guys are the
A plus.
yeah.
Yeah.
So all right, so what I want to do now in these final moments is do two things. One, I want to thank all of you for coming on, making
you.
time. This has been great. And two, let the folks know where to check you out, social media, website, all of that good stuff. Michelle, we'll start with you.
Okay. I'm the managing director at the Baltimore Improv Group, so you can find me at bigimprov.org. My personal Instagram is she_Nan, short for shenanigans. And I'm working on posting more. So just look me up.
I'll pistol whip the next man that says shenanigans. Hey, Farver, what's that place you go to with the cheese sticks on the bullshit on the wall? You mean shenanigans?
Is that the dog? Is that the dog talking?
Yeah. If the dog does have the voice of Brian Cox, yes. I love Michelle's like, I'm the manager. I'm like, oh yeah, a little too easy to find. It sounds like.
Yes.
I'm currently trying to something went horribly wrong with my website, so I'm having to reboot it right now. So if anyone, I'm not good at that. If anyone listening to this wants to help me, that would be great. Help me do this. Most places. For social media, it's like either B3OC, the B, the number 3, and OC. But honestly, this is not a humble brag or anything like that. It is just easier to just Google my name.
Strong.
Brian James O'Connell.
Pretty strong.
Brian James O'Connell, social media, and you'll get all that. I have to go by all 3 of my names like an asshole because when I joined SAG, there was already a Brian O'Connell.
Stronger.
Yeah. Don't worry, I haven't been in SAG in a while. Yeah, so it's just I have to go by all 3 names, but for SEO purposes, it has been made very nice. So, yes, I'm on your tour, you son of a bitch. You want me to be findable?
That's true. So co-founder and president of the board at Highwire Improv, highwireimprov.com, at Highwire Improv on all the social media that matters. If you want to find me personally, Barry E. Wright III, because I am the third, on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Thank you. And yeah, I'll take as many messages and Google Doc requests as you've got. Please reach out.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone call you Trips? Anyone in the family call you Trips?
Trace.
Nice. That's it. That's the other one. Strong white man vibes there. My name is Barry Wright III, but Muffy calls me Trace.
Well, there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Barry Wright III, Brian James O'Connell, and Michelle Faulkner Forson for coming on to the podcast. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that this art, culture, community, in and around your neck of the woods, you've just got to look for it.